Revolutionary greetings, comrades. We continue discussing the influence of France in some countries in Africa, especially West and Central Africa. You remember when we started this discussion, we said countries in West and Central Africa still pay colonial tax to France, and France controls their economies. We said that it controls their budgets, and the comrades seemed surprised on why this is happening, and they wanted us to understand the key figures in the struggle for national liberation in France, in West and Central Africa and some countries, so that we begin to understand what led to the current status quo, where the French controls the military, controls the budget of its former colonies in West Africa. In Central Africa, we discussed in the previous video about Leopold Senghor of Senegal. we gave a detailed account on him. The video is available on YouTube if comrades want to refer back. And we did promise that we will look into Houphouët-Boigny of Ivory Coast, so that we have an understanding on what was his role and his peers during the struggle for national liberation when we were under colonialism. As you would know, that some countries were under the colonialism, colonized by France. On this part of the world were colonized by Britain and Portugal in Mozambique and DRC. In Mozambique and Angola, then DRC and others were colonized by Belgium, others by Germany, and some by Italy. So let's look into Houphouët-Boigny of Ivory Coast. He was a key figure during the struggle for national liberation. He was born in 1905, a son of a prosperous chiefly Baule family. He was from the chieftaincy. He had graduated from the medicine school in Senegal. He studied in Senegal and returned in Ivory Coast after graduation, where he worked as a colonial medic service for 15 years in Ivory Coast. While he was working, he was able to purchase vast tracts of land in Ivory Coast and established himself as one of the richest African coca planters. You will know that in Ivory Coast, coca is the mainstay of the economy there. His entry into politics came in 1944 when he led a group of African planters in opposing the French policy of discriminatory in favor of French planters in Ivory Coast. And he was elected later on in 1945 as a deputy to the Constitutional Assembly. You remember we did say that in French colonies at the time, they will elect some as deputies who will be members of the Constituent Assembly in Paris. Of course, he campaigned against forced labor, and when he sponsored a bill, there was a bill that was named after him, which was against forced labor in 1946. That propelled him to the top. He became a national leader, established himself as a national leader in Ivory Coast. He was a rich man who owned vast tracts of land and was leading the planters, coca planters, black coca planters in Ivory Coast. So he gained a reputation as a national leader. To ensure more effective political representation in the National Assembly in Paris, Houphouët chose an alliance with the communists in France. Communists were in a coalition government at the time, and he identified them as his key political allies. But of course, the communists withdrew from government in 1947 in favor of a revolutionary action as opposed to of a reformist agenda. The withdrawal of the communists obviously weakened his party, RDA, which he was leading. The activities of the party were affected as the French government sought to suppress the activities of his party in Ivory Coast. A number of leaders of his party, RDA, were arrested by the French government in Ivory Coast, and there was an attack on the political structure of the party in 1950, and this attack on the party and isolating the party, it actually brought it to its knees because a number of cadres in his party were imprisoned. He then was forced, after meeting with the Minister of Overseas, that is the French Minister of Overseas, Francois Mitterrand, in 1950, Houphouët broke ranks with the communists. So after the crackdown by the French government on his party, when he had formed an alliance with communists, he then thought that the easiest way was to break up with the communists and join with the French authorities, because for him it was not about the independence of France. I mean, of Ivory Coast. He was not interested in the national liberation of France, in it gaining independence. What he needed was a fair treatment and economic participation. Hence, he never called or demanded the independence of Ivory Coast. The RDA, the party that he led, was neither anti-French in its policy, nor did it demand independence. Unlike Ghana and the other colonies that were demanding independence during the struggle for national liberation. His party aimed at equality for Africans with the Union of France. You remember in the previous video, we said most of these elites in the French colonies, they saw themselves as black French. So they needed, wherefore, that equality as part of the French community, as opposed to demanding independence from French rule. So when he had broken with the communists, he then claimed that the source of the problem that he had with France was because of his association with the communists. And now that he had broken ranks with the communists in 1950, he did not see any reason why he had to be in conflict with the French authorities or the French government. He made economic development his priority as opposed to political reform. He forged an alliance with the French business community, and he was part or advocating for the establishment of what was called the Franco-African community. He played a key role in establishing a constitution to guide the Franco-African community. a number of French colonies were asked to take part in a referendum. The referendum was set for the 28th of September 1958. And the referendum was that the French colonies had to decide to vote yes to be part of the African community. So if you were voting yes in the referendum, it meant that the territory, the colony, will become a permanent member of the community. You have close ties with France. This was the basis for what we see today. What happened in that referendum on 28 September 1958 was the basis of what is happening today, where countries gave up their sovereignty to France because they were part of a Franco-African summit or a community, that their budgets will be controlled by France, their military controlled by France. They will not enter into a military alliance with any other country without the approval of France. So it was this referendum of 1958, which was being championed by Ivory Coast at the time when the referendum was held. Then those that were to vote no, it meant that it was secession and loss of trust and assistance from France. So if a country voted no to participate in the Franco-African community, it meant loss of support by the French government, and it meant that you were now independent. We will then discuss one country, Guinea, which took that route, which voted no, as what we're going to conclude to, so that we give a balanced view. You will know that Kwame Nkrumah was opposed to that, though Ghana was not was not a French colony. But we will discuss, as we promised in Guinea, we'll talk about Comrade Ahmed Sekau Toure, because he opposed the joining of the Franco-African community. So the countries that joined Franco-African community surrendered their sovereignty to France. Their militaries, even today, controlled by France. Young people, even today, they still join the military. We discussed in previous videos, particularly when we're starting the recent coups in West and Central Africa, that some officers were trained in France, and they still have the military legion in Africa. It has bases in Africa, France as well. It controls the military, it controls the finances. Colonies still pay colonial tax. So this was the foundation as way back as 1958. If we were to understand what is happening in some parts of West and Central Africa, if today the president or prime minister is no longer playing ball with France, they will simply sponsor a coup. They will remove the president. So we will then be concluding our discussion on the relationship between France and Africa, why France is still controlling, when we then, in the next few days, we then discuss again. So comrades, as I've said, that we have comrades in the African Diaspora Forum who are from those countries. Please share your experiences with us. We know that you live in those countries. so you understand far much better than us. Ours is based on research, but yours is based on practical experience. So please share with us, subscribe to this YouTube channel and circulate. Amandla, comrades, red salute.